right, so let's move on to the NFC. The NFC playoff picture is just got a little more complicated last night with that ass whipping. Let's start with that. I mean, is the word out? Did Sean Payton figure out how to? I mean, he embarrassed the Bucks. I mean, they flat ass embarrassed him. Is the word out? Is this a playbook to follow for the rest of the season? They're going to make Tampa's road that much harder?
Yeah, well, kind of what I was just talking about, about the Colts and my Saints theory. The Saints were able to win a few games, a few tough games without Michael Thomas, and then without Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. And kind of like I mentioned with Christian McCaffrey earlier, there are some guys that are playmakers, some guys that are game changers. Alvin Kamara is another game changer, and they were just able to do whatever they wanted, which was a little weird. The Tampa Bay defense has played so well, and I would have to completely rewatch the game to really pay attention to what the Saints were trying to do to them that was so effective. But I'm going to assume that whoever the Buccaneers play week to week is going to look at that tape and try to exploit the exact same things from an offensive standpoint. And man, I just don't understand the Bucks offense. I'm trying not to be a complete Tom hater right now because I think he's
Oh, you're a Tom hater.
I'm a Tom hater.
Anyone's paying attention knows that.
But that's really the only place it can go for me because you have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Now you have Antonio Brown. You have Gronk. You have the same offensive line Jameis Winston had. Like I don't understand how Tom Brady comes in, and I get the whole learn the system thing, and Bruce Arians' system is so complex and blah blah blah. But the greatest quarterback on earth should be able to walk into a system and figure it out by week 8, right? And
which leads me to the question. I didn't watch the game. I have to be honest. I didn't watch the game. And I really didn't get a chance to read much about it today. So this is off the cuff. But my first thought because of the points you're making right there, my first thought was I wondered if Arians got out coached by Peyton. If
there
this
is
comes
that.
down to coaching.
There is, oh yeah,
because something was really wrong. Now it could have been a combination of everything. Guys not feeling well, guys not playing well, him getting out coached. It could have been just one of those days where nothing was going to go right. I don't know the answer to that. But I certainly think the coaching has to come into play to some degree.
Yeah, and I'd believe that. They won the week 1 matchup also, and so if these teams have to match up, which I believe at least I had the Saints and the Bucks meeting for a third time in the NFC Championship. If that's the case, then I mean you would have to think it's going to happen again. I don't know. I would wonder what the all-time record between Arians and Peyton is. I wonder if Peyton just normally is able to do that to Bruce Arians.
That's a good question. What do you think, Zach?
I think Sunday night's game, I think it was a little bit of coaching, obviously. I mean, Peyton's a great coach. But I also just think that the Bucs had a bad game. And it happens, especially against a really good team like New Orleans is. I know they struggled, especially not having Michael Thomas, but he came back and they were firing all cylinders, offensively, defensively, playing like the New Orleans Saints team that we know they're capable of playing like. But I think Tampa Bay just had a bad game, got out coached, got outplayed, got out hustled, all the things above. And then I think they're going to go in, look at film, and put it all behind them and move on. Tampa Bay is still only half a game behind New Orleans. So they're more than capable of still winning this division. With that said, I'll switch over to New Orleans because we're originally talking about them, but they swept Tampa Bay. As you always say, Brad, it's hard to beat a team twice in a season. It's even harder to beat them a third time. So if they do match up in the playoffs,
it should be a good game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be a real good game.
But New Orleans, with the remaining of their schedule, they're done with Tampa Bay. They took both those games. Their divisional games left against Atlanta week 11, at Atlanta week 13, at Carolina week 17. Their division games, they should win them. They could lose them. You don't know. And then they also play a injury-ridden San Francisco team week 10. They're at Philadelphia week 14, which I only include them because they're in the playoffs, even though they're like 3-20 right now. But and then they also play Kansas City. So New Orleans fully capable of running the table here. They could come out the number one seed. Tampa Bay is only a half game behind. They could sneak up and take it and move New Orleans down to a fifth seed. You never know.
Yeah, but I think it's safe to say for both of these teams, and we're going to break the rest of these spots down. I don't want to create any panic. So they are a half game behind because the Bucks have played one more game than New Orleans has. So New Orleans is going to have to win one more, and the Bucks are going to have a bye come up. With the way the rest of the NFC is shaking out, I don't see either of these teams. The team who does not win the division, I don't see them in jeopardy of not making the playoffs. So I think they're both okay. Just what we're looking at is a guaranteed spot for the team that wins the division, and so it'll be interesting to see how all that unfolds. So I didn't make that clear at the beginning. I'm sure everyone's figured it out by now. Right now, New Orleans currently holds the number one spot and holds the bye position for the NFC playoffs. Number two is the Seattle Seahawks in what has arguably been called perhaps the toughest division in football right now. You have a lot of NFC West teams just beating the hell out of each other. And it appeared the Seahawks were going to run away with this, but the last couple weeks have been telling, and yesterday with that shellacking the Bills put on the Seahawks really opens the West completely up, in my opinion.
Yeah, I could see that, and we'll have to see more consistency from the Rams, and obviously more consistency from the Cardinals. The Seahawks, they're just. I know their defense is inconsistent, but their offense is consistently putting up huge numbers. This was obviously the second game in the last three that Russ has thrown 3 interceptions. So, they got to clean that up. But he's also throwing a ridiculous amount, right? So, give that for what it is. The race is currently close. I don't see this one really being in question. I think unless Russell Wilson gets hurt for the rest of the year, there's no way the Seahawks lose this division with the way the other teams have looked.
I mean, I'm going to have to disagree with you a little bit here. They're only one game ahead of Arizona and the Rams. They're 2.5 games ahead of San Francisco. Any one of these teams could win it. I don't think San Francisco will because of their injuries. But as far as the Cardinals and the Rams, I definitely believe they have a shot. The remaining divisional games for Seattle are at Los Angeles in Week 10, against Arizona Week 11, against the Rams again in Week 16, and at San Francisco in Week 17. So that's a lot of divisional games that they have to play. And, of course, they play at Philadelphia Week 12. They should win that game, but Philadelphia can upset them. Seattle's defense is not good. It hasn't been good all year. It actually worries me. It turns me off with Seattle. I don't see them doing any real damage in the playoffs with the kind of caliber teams that are in the NFC, and even if they make it to the Super Bowl coming out of the AFC. But in my opinion, this division is still up for grabs. Any one of these four teams are capable of taking it.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, listening to you both talk, is that I think we're all three speaking the same language, just in different dialects, because the Rams are schizophrenic right now. The Rams are certainly capable of going on a 6-game winning streak and dominate, but they're also capable of dropping 6 games in a row. We just don't know which team's going to show up. And, San Francisco's here and there. They've got a lot of injuries. They got a lot of problems they're dealing with. So Arizona, obviously, they put up some numbers against a very good Miami defense yesterday. So Arizona's capable too. I think there's a couple things in the Seahawks' favor other than, leading the division is that there are 3 remaining division games or 4 remaining division games. I'm gonna discount San Francisco because they have such an uphill battle, I think, in this contest. Not that they can't win, but they probably won't. But the 2 out of the 3, they split with the Rams, and they have 2 games at home and 1 of them on the road, and I think that may help Seattle. The question that I want to pose is, or it's kind of a rhetorical question, is the Seahawks, came out of the gate and just were playing out of their mind, and now they seem to struggle, which could be, they peaked early. It could be that defensive, maybe there's enough film and they figured out how to counteract what the offense was doing, and the defense isn't good enough to pick up the slack. So it'll be interesting to see those questions answered. If it's those type things, they peaked early, or words gotten out how to beat them, and these division teams employ that, this picture could change very quickly. The likelihood as it stands right now is probably not, but the reality is it could. So this will still be a fun division to watch down the stretch.
Yeah, and with the Seahawks, it'll be interesting. I think they really missed Chris Carson in this game against the Bills. If Chris Carson's in the lineup instead of DJ Dallas, I think there might be a different outcome. They're able to get more first downs, hold on to the ball longer, keep the Bills off the field, and it ends up differently. But also, they're getting that trade they made for Carlos Dunlap. He wasn't able to play in this game because of COVID protocols and this and that. But they're going to get Carlos Dunlap, and they haven't had any pass rush this year. That's been the main issue with that defense is no pass rush. So quarterbacks have all day to throw, which is why the Bills threw it 35 times in their first 40 plays. And so hopefully with Carlos Dunlap, that can change some things. You can get one guy that gets double teamed, so then you can bring Jamal Adams on an exotic blitz or bring Bobby Wagner on a blitz and then get more one-on-ones or get a free guy and things of that nature. Hopefully one piece can help that, but we'll have to see. It's something that I'm certainly going to be watching for next week.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so moving to the number 3 spot, sitting at the top of the NFC North comfortably is the Green Bay Packers. They slipped a couple weeks ago. They had a really strong win yesterday against San Francisco, which we keep talking about San Francisco. People should understand San Francisco is a very good team, and they're very well coached. They're battling a lot of injuries. So winning big against them is still a pretty notable accomplishment, in my opinion. They're 2.5 games ahead of Chicago. Sorry, Bears fans. I love their defense, and I just praised them earlier, but the Bears don't have what it takes to. They're not going to overtake Green Bay, and they'll be lucky if they make the playoffs, in my opinion.
You talking about the 49ers lucky to make the playoffs?
No. Sorry. Talking about the Bears that I shouldn't have ended on the Bears. I should have brought it back around to the Packers. So the point is the Packers are sitting comfortably at the top of this division and are guaranteed, in my opinion, to make the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. The Bears, we called it earlier in the year, the biggest pretenders in the league. They definitely looked like it. Nick Foles and that offense are inept. So, I would agree that the Bears probably not in a real good position going forward. But the Packers looked powerful, and it was nice that they could get a revenge game on the 49ers. But I believe during the telecast when that game was happening, there was a graphic that came up that had the people that touched the ball for the 49ers in that NFC Championship game, and they were all out or on different teams. So, completely different team. Like you said, they're so well coached that it's hard to think that they're going to get blown out the way they did. And they're as well as their coach is the only reason that I won't drop them further in my power rankings, because I have a lot of faith in Kyle Shanahan to pretty much plug and play anybody any given week. But the Packers again just look so good. Aaron Rodgers playing at an MVP level with 4 touchdowns again, and if he has a couple more weeks like that and Russell Wilson keeps struggling and having 3 interception games, Aaron Rodgers could be the MVP this year.
Yeah, he very well could. Like you said, he had 4 touchdowns, 305 yards. He was 25 for 31 in that game. Absolutely huge. 34-17 win over the Niners. That moves them to 6-2. Like we said, they're sitting at number 3 in the playoff picture right now. 2.5 game lead over Chicago. I don't see them giving that up at all. They play Chicago twice. They got them in week 12 in Green Bay and then again in Chicago week 17. The only other divisional game they have left would be at Detroit week 14. So they're more than capable of winning all 3 of those games. They might split with the Bears. We'll see how that plays out. But then they also play at Indianapolis in week 11, against Philadelphia in week 13, and against Tennessee in week 16. They could drop one against Indianapolis, or they could drop one against Tennessee. You don't know. I like them to definitely win their division. I'm hopeful that they could slide in there to the number 1 seed, but at this point, I don't see that happening. But who knows?
It's interesting because I was going to say that I think they have a really good shot. I think playing on the road in Indianapolis may be tough for them, but Tennessee's in Green Bay in Week 16 for crying out loud. We're talking about cold. I will simplify and just say this: the number 1 spot at this point is going to come down between the Green Bay Packers and whoever wins the AFC South.
I agree.
Yeah. I don't see the West. I think those teams are going to beat the hell out of each other. Their records aren't going to be strong enough because of that, because of the parity in the division. And I don't even want to talk about the NFC East, even though we have to talk about them next, but they aren't going to beat anybody for anything. So I think it comes down to those 3 teams: the Saints, the Bucks, or the Packers. All right, so the number 4 spot leads us to the number 4 spot. The NFC East. I just can't even believe we're having a conversation about the goddamn Philadelphia Eagles right now. And I was an Eagles fan when I was a kid. I was a Jaws fan. I was 10, 11 years old, and Jaworski won a Super Bowl and that whole thing. God, my memory's killing me. I don't even remember if he won the damn thing. I think they lost maybe to the Raiders. Now that I think about it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But this is an embarrassment that they're 3-4 and then they're in the 4th playoff spot in Week 9. But here we are, right?
Yeah, if it wasn't for the way the NFL playoff format is, then we would have all 4 NFC West teams in the playoffs at the current moment.
Great point.
Yeah, so and they were talking before the season, a couple weeks before the season, about maybe making it to where win percentage gets you in, and I really wish they would have done that, because I just, it's going to be so ugly watching the Eagles. And when it gets time for January, late December and January, at an Eagles game, it's going to be sloppy and snowy, and it's going to be a crappy game to watch because you're watching the Eagles get beat like 40-0 in the playoffs. And but maybe they get a little healthier and get something going, but they're only in there because of technicality.
Yeah, for sure. And they only have a game and a half lead over Washington. They might just end up losing this and Washington sliding up there, or even one of the other teams. Who knows? I mean, obviously the Cowboys are having quarterback issues. They're down to the 4th string, and the Giants are the Giants. But with this division, nobody can ever tell. My bet is that Washington is going to slide up in here towards the end of the season and take the divisional crown. They play against Washington Week 17, so that'll be a huge game to determine who's going to win this division. But the Eagles also play at New York Week 10, at Dallas Week 16. But in addition to those divisional games, they're at Cleveland Week 11, against Seattle Week 12, at Green Bay Week 13, against New Orleans Week 14, at Arizona 15. The Washington schedule is nowhere near that difficult. So it would not surprise me if Philadelphia loses control of this division and Washington slides in there at the number 4 spot.
Well, because we need to add, I mean, the Eagles are sitting here at 3-4. The other 3 remaining NFC East teams are one game. The math doesn't work out this cleanly, but they are effectively only one game behind with only 2 wins. Anybody could win this division. First 1 to 5 wins.
No kidding.
And I like Zach's prediction. Alex Smith, Kyle Allen dislocates his ankle. Another Washington quarterback that gets a gruesome leg injury in game, and so he might be out for the season. Ron Rivera is not completely ruling him out for the year, but we get Alex Smith back as a starting quarterback in the NFL, and I'm all for it. And if he can lead the Washington football team to the playoffs, then let's do it. I'm about it.
Yeah, it'd be a great story for sure.
Yeah, I am actually gonna go on record. I mean, so the Giants pulled out a win this week. The Cowboys almost beat the Steelers. We just went over the former Washington team that used to be somebody else, whatever the name is. The Eagles are got a tough schedule. It's really a one quarter shot. I mean, everybody's got a 25% chance of winning this freaking division. What a disaster. Let's move on. We spent way too much time over here. All right. So as it currently stands, Tampa Bay brings in the 5th spot. We've talked a lot about Tampa Bay already. They have a shot to win their division. They can flip-flop with the Saints. I think this is pretty locked up. It's when we get to 6 and 7 that things get really crazy. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is going to be an NFC West team. I don't think the Bears have it. The Bears are currently sitting in 8th. I think they play Minnesota twice. I think Minnesota can beat them. Minnesota is kind of getting their stuff together. I'm not gonna sell my soul in the beginning like I did at the beginning of the season. Minnesota's got everything they need to win. Every once in a while, they find it. They found it this weekend against the Lions. They could potentially beat the Bears not only once, but maybe twice. The Bears also have to play Green Bay. I don't see the Bears being a contender, as we talked about earlier. The 49ers are too banged up. They're sitting at 9. So it looks like it's going to come down to the Cardinals, the Rams, and the Seahawks, depending on who wins the division. And I think the other 2 teams are probably going to squeeze in.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's the Bears have a very, very difficult road ahead. Like you said, they play Green Bay twice, they play Minnesota twice, and then they play Detroit. Other than that, I mean, they don't have any other notable games on their schedule, which, I mean, they're more than fully capable of losing. Any team is. That's why they call it any given Sunday. But 5 divisional games, it's going to be very difficult for the Bears to squeak in there. So, yeah, I would definitely put my money on 2 other NFC West teams squeezing in there for the 6 and 7 spot.
Did you say it was going to be very difficult?
Very difficult.
You know, I'm inclined to be right there with you guys, and I think, yeah, it's just I'd like to say that with CMC back in the mix for the Panthers, that they can make a run and rattle off a bunch of wins and squeak into that 7 seed and make some noise. But I just don't see that happening. The NFC West is just so strong. So I'm just going to echo the same sentiment. You're probably getting 3 teams, maybe 4 from the NFC West making the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and to your point about the Panthers, and I know that you like the Panthers, and they've showed some signs of life. They don't have an easy road either. They still have the Saints. They've got the Packers. They're going to have to get through the Vikings in Minnesota, and the Vikings are schizophrenic. I mean, you never know which team's going to show up. So I don't know that the Panthers have pulled their identity together enough. And I think it's unrealistic to think the Panthers would have a better shot at 3 and 6 than what the Bears do with the Bears defense. So I'm going to have to agree with you there. I just don't see any other conversations about any other teams. It looks like, and as we kind of wrap up here, it looks like both the AFC and the NFC pictures are pretty clear that I think we know the 14 teams that are moving on.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. At least, definitely, you know, the AFC, there's a 2-game gap between the 5 and 3 teams, and then it goes straight down to the Broncos at 3 and 5. The NFC, you know, maybe the 49ers were able to squeak out some wins with Kyle Shanahan's leadership, but like you said, it just seems that we know everything. The teams that are down, it seems like it's just going to be too difficult for them to make that up with the schedules they have remaining.
I agree.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah, I mean the only question marks as it stands right now is who is going to win the NFC East and who is going to win the AFC South. Everybody else seems to be locked in there.
Yeah, with the exception of the NFC West, but But I think, I mean, of course, but I think, you know, the point there is that the top 3 teams are going to go. We know which 3 teams those probably are at this point. So, so then it really does become a matter of who is going to finish, you know, top of the South, and then what that other dumpster fire crap's going to do. And to your point, the final point I want to make is, Hefe, you mentioned something earlier that they had talked about going win percentage. I guarantee you, if an NFC East team moves into the playoffs with less than 7 wins, they'll probably change that in the offseason. This will be the year they finally address it. If the owners don't, if all the other owners, especially the teams that didn't get in because of that, don't lead a mutiny parade down the street, I mean, this is certainly their opportunity to do so, and they'd be foolish not to. So I suspect that may happen.
Yeah. The only reason I would say that doesn't happen is because that's Jerry Jones' division, and the NFL won't mess with it. But I hope they do. I've been wanting that to be a rule change for as long as I can remember. I think it was when the Panthers went to the playoffs at like 7-8-1 or 7-9, something like that. In I don't even know what it was, 2012, 2014. And after that, I was just like, there's no way you can leave out a team that won 10 games and put these guys in. They just shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's wrap this up. We want to remind you it's not too late to go head-to-head against us in weekly pick-em battle, especially because one of us made their picks on the show and forgot to fill them in. I didn't go back and calculate. I don't even know that I will at this point. Doesn't matter. Anyway, if you're interested in, I'm not going to win the whole thing. I didn't fill my picks out, so come and play with us anyway.
You act like you were going to win it anyways.
I'm sorry. Can somebody mute him, please? Anyway, come join us. Hop on our Facebook, Twitter page at Horseman Sports, where you can find the link to join our free Pigskin Pick'em League and possibly win a prize and maybe get on air with us and represent your team. So also every Wednesday, check out Hefe's new power rankings. You can find it on Facebook and Twitter page at Horseman Sports. Be sure to check that out and let us know in the comments what you think about your favorite team's ranking. Tell Hefe whether you think he's a god or he's trash. He loves that kind of feedback. If you are into fantasy football, which I know many of you are, check out our weekly episode of Fantasy Central, where Zach and Hefe cover the week's top waiver wire picks, must-starts, and players to avoid in the upcoming week. And, of course, we will see you back here on Thursday for this week's Game Picks and Preview Show. Until then, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the games, and see you Thursday.